the most beautiful place in all of Greece, in my opinion, is Meteora. Meteora is a bunch of monasteries that are built up into the mountains, and it's hard to describe, but they're sheer cliffs. So they're like pillars. It's not just a mountain; it's a pillar of rock, and they built stairs up the pillar to these monasteries that are built on the top of this rock, and they're very unique. There's I don't know, 6 or 7 of them right there, right next to each other, and it's really interesting. They built them up there because people would come and pillage the monasteries and steal their gold because they had gold in their churches, and they'd take their food and kill the priests and what have you. And so they decided, you know what, we're going to make it really hard for them. And so there's one way to get up there, and it's by this, 4-foot walkway with sheer drops on either side. And so it's really, really unique. And they have little rooms up there that are just, they've put the skeletal remains of old priests, so you can look into the rooms, and they're just walls made of skulls. And it's just gorgeous. You go up there and you can just look out, and they're so high above the ground. You can just look out over the countryside, and it's absolutely stunning. So I highly recommend it. I have no regrets going there. That's just the most beautiful things I think I've ever seen in my life. They have a word for no, and it's ohi. But they don't usually say ohi. They'll just go, they make this little kissy click noise. And I didn't know that. And it's again, like my second or third day out there, I was going to talk to people. My companion said, okay, well, you go talk by yourself to this person. And I was like, okay, great. And it was a very attractive woman. And I went up to her and I said, hey, would you like to talk about Jesus or something to that effect? And she just goes, and I said, oh, I'm sort of blushing, it's like, no, I just want to talk about Jesus. And she, again, I'm like, stop. Why are you flirting with me? And she did that a couple of times, and then I just walked away because she wouldn't talk to me. She just kept blowing kisses at me. And my companion was just laughing. I thought that was really funny. And so I learned that day that means no. They have something in the middle of the day called Messimeriano, which is basically a siesta. There's 2 hours during the middle of the day, I think 2 to 4 o'clock, where everything shuts down. If you go out on the street, there's nobody there. All the stores are closed. They all go home and they eat a big meal. That's their dinner. They eat their big meal at 2 o'clock, and they all go take a nap. And then they'll go back to work after that. And it's very funny. If you need something during Messimeriano, good luck finding it, because everybody's at home taking a nap. Something that a lot of people may not know about Greece is that they don't call themselves Greek. They don't speak Greek. Everybody in the world says they're Greeks, they're Greco, everybody calls them a form of Greek, but they don't consider themselves Greek. They call themselves Hellenists. They speak Hellenic. And they're the Hellenic people. They're not Greek. And that's something that's very interesting that not a lot of people know. If you call them Greeks, they won't know what you're talking about. They probably will, but they won't like it. They're not Greek. They're Hellenic. I'm not 100% sure. I think it might have something to do with Helen of Troy. I'd have to do some research on that for sure. I've been told it's because of Helen of Troy. She was the most beautiful person in Greece, and they fought the Battle of Troy over her, and then they named their country after her. I might be wrong. That's just what I've been told. So forgive me if I'm incorrect. They don't really shake hands. It wouldn't be rude for you to extend a hand to them, but they don't really shake hands. I've never had anybody extend a hand to me. Sometimes they'll do the philakia, the kiss on the cheek, or just kind of nod at each other. That's the most common greeting, is just to kind of nod at each other. The funniest thing about Greek food is that it's not what you'd expect, especially if you've eaten at a Greek restaurant here in America. Some of the best Greek food is nowhere to be found in America, which is the craziest thing. And you can find moussaka here, and moussaka's fine. It's better in Greece, obviously. You can find dolmadakia, there's baklava, lots of great Greek foods. But the best Greek foods you can't find here. You can find gyros here. Gyros are the best. But the gyros that you find here in America are very different. Here in America, it's pretty bland. They use tzatziki. That's an option in Greece, but usually you'd use a gyro sauce, which is a sweeter sauce. And they would put French fries in it. They'd usually use pork or chicken, whereas here in America they use lamb. Lamb is a very stereotypical Greek food, but they don't eat it very much over there. It's kind of like turkey here. They eat it on special occasions. But on their gyros and on their general platters, it's usually pork or chicken, and that's how it is in their gyros as well. And their gyros are to die for. They drip with grease and sauce, and it's just amazing. And so you need to go to Greece to get a real gyro. The ones here in America are nowhere close. But there's also a lot of other great Greek foods that you can only find in Greece for some reason, like tiropita. A lot of people have heard of spanakopita, which is a spinach pie. It's got fila dough. It's very flaky crust, and that's delicious. But there's another version called tiropita, which is with feta cheese instead of spinach, and that is to die for. It's amazing, and you can't find it here. I can find it every now and then at a Greek festival, but it's nobody knows about it. It's practically non-existent here. And then there's bougatsa, a very traditional pastry, especially up north Greece, and it's a custard pastry with it's also fila dough, and they put cinnamon and powdered sugar on top, and it's amazing. And again, you can't find it here. So if you want real Greek food, you got to go to Greece. The stuff here is fine, I guess, but once you've had real Greek food, you can't eat at the Mad Greek. You can't go to a Greek restaurant here because it's nothing. It's not even close, and it's really sad because I love the food. So they're obviously very big on seafood. They eat a lot of fish and octopus and stuff like that. I wasn't as big on that, so I didn't have too much of it, but that is a big dish over there. They also have their Greek salad. They just put onions and feta into their salad, and then vinaigrette. So that's a big dish over there as well. You can find that here though. They drink a lot of ouzo, and I don't know if you're familiar with ouzo, but it's an alcoholic drink, and it's very strong. You do not drink it in large quantities, and it's I don't know if this is true, but I've heard tell that it's basically laced with a product very similar to cocaine, and so it's very strong. And it's perfectly clear as well. We were talking to some people going door to door, and somebody offered us water. And so he brought a whole cup of water, and he gave it to me and my companion. And we were just kind of talking, and I pick up my cup, and I almost go to drink, and I smell it. That is not water. And he laughed. He was trying to get us to drink ouzo, but because it looks exactly like water. Unless you smell it, you cannot tell the difference, other than tasting, of course. And so that's a big drink over there. They also are crazy about coffee. They drink coffee nonstop. If you go out on the streets, it smells like coffee everywhere. Greece, the country itself, smells like coffee because they drink so much coffee. It's actually kind of funny. Paul talks in the scriptures about how he went to Athens and he was talking to them, and all they wanted to do is sit around and gossip and talk and just philosophize. That's all they wanted to do. And that's still what they do to this day. They'll just sit around and drink coffee and talk about the world and not do anything about it. It's a very, very Greek thing to do. They like to eat mushrooms, yamista, filled. So they'll put cheese and sometimes meat inside, and they'll eat that. Not a huge fan, but a lot of people really like that. They like moussaka. It's a lot like lasagna, but it's creamy lasagna. It's hard to explain. It's really good though. I recommend it. Actually the craziest food I had in Greece was not Greek food. It was actually on my first day there. And I thought, man, I'm not going to make it if this is what Greek food's like. But it was actually served by some people from Africa, and it was a rice dish. And what they had done is they'd caught some fish, they'd slit its throat, bled it out, and then boiled the fish, skin and all, in its own blood, and then put a ton of spice on it. And then they served the fish, skin and all, with the blood sauce over rice. And I couldn't eat it, and I thought, again, if this is what food's like over here, I don't know if I'm gonna survive. But I realized after that Greek food, other than that, is all pretty good. Not a big fan of onions, and they eat onions in a lot of things. But apart from that, I love pretty much all Greek food. They're very friendly, at least for the most part. Some people don't care for Americans per se, so if they find out you're American, they might get a little cold. But apart from that, they're very warm and welcoming people. They love to sit around and talk. They love to sit around and talk about God, about politics, about whatever you want to talk about. They love it. They'll invite you in to sit down and they'll just talk forever. So they're very warm and welcoming about that kind of stuff. And they're very passionate about the arts. Every Greek I've ever met is in love with sculpture and music. Music is a big part of their culture, and they have a lot of their own music that they produce. They don't listen to a lot of American music, unlike most European countries. They have some. They like Lady Gaga. At least while I was there, she was very big. She was playing on all the radios. But apart from that, they like their own music. They like their own culture. They're very proud of their own culture. In fact, they go so far to claim things that they like from other cultures are part of their culture, just so they can justify liking it. And I think that's very funny. Greeks also, again, are very laid back. They love talking. They love socializing. They love music. And that's just who they are. Their transportation system is really great. You don't need a car there. They've got, especially in the bigger cities, of course, but they've got metros underneath the ground, some trains above ground that'll take you everywhere you need to go. And if they can't get you where you need to go, they have a very robust bus system as well. So, and it's very affordable. If I remember correctly, it was like $20 a month for a pass that included all buses and trains and metros. And so it was a very affordable system and that it could get you anywhere you needed to go. The country itself is very gorgeous. It's a lot like honestly, if you go out in the countryside, it looks a lot like Utah if you traded out the sagebush for olive trees. It's very interesting. It's almost deserty, but like a Mediterranean desert. But it's really pretty, a lot of really pretty mountains, especially, obviously, you got to get outside the city. But the city of Athens is surrounded by mountains, and it's just gorgeous. There's a lot of political turmoil in Greece right now. A lot of the economy's kind of in shambles. They have a lot of riots there. It's like once a week there's a riot there, and they tear apart the main square, and then by the week after it's all fixed up again and beautiful, and then there's another riot. But there was one time where we were, again, talking to people, but it was in the main square right in front of the Parliament building. And we were just sitting talking to people. We were talking to somebody, having a good conversation, very focused on that conversation. So we weren't realizing what's going on around us. And we noticed that people started running and clearing out. And the guy that we were talking to just kind of up and ran off in the middle of our conversation. I'm like, well, that was rude. And so we start to pack up. We grab our books, grab our whiteboard, and we look around. And on one side, coming down the steps from the Parliament, is riot police. And the other side, running towards us, are just a mob of people in gas masks with sticks and rocks. And they're just like running towards us, and we're in the middle. And we think, okay, well, this is how we die, you know? And so we just picked up our stuff and we started running. And they were throwing rocks. There was rocks landing all around us. And then from the other side, there were gas grenades being thrown. At one point, there was a gas grenade that landed like right in front of me as I was running off. And it exploded, and I jumped over it. And I'm sure if there was a camera, it would have looked epic. But it destroyed my lungs. It just exploded as I was jumping over it. And I really wish somebody would have taken a picture of that, because it would have been just absolutely gorgeous. But that was a really fun experience. That kind of thing happened a lot. There was one time where there was a planned strike. They were going to strike. It was the transit community, the people who ran the buses, taxis, and the trains. Essentially, were rioting, and they were striking. And so they were all going to go to the main square and have a strike, like a sit-in. And then they realized they couldn't get to the main square because they were transportation. And so the transportation strike was canceled because there was no transportation. And that's just a very Greek thing to do. I lived in two different cities. Well, obviously Athens and Thessaloniki. Athens is towards the south, and it's the biggest city. It's their capital. It's where their parliament is and all that fun stuff. And then Thessaloniki is up towards the north, towards Macedonia. And Thessaloniki is gorgeous. It's one of my favorite places in the entire world. It's built around a bay, and so the city kind of wraps around the water a little bit. And it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's kind of built up into a hillside just a little bit as well. And so regardless of where you live, you kind of get to look down at the water. And so it's gorgeous. I love it there. It was 2 months into my mission in Greece, and me and my companion, my trainer, were obviously we're going around talking to people, trying to talk to people about Jesus Christ. And we got a text one day, and the text just says, "Hey, this is Emmanuel from the bus. I'd like to meet up sometime." And we're like, Emmanuel from the bus? I don't know. We talked to a lot of people on the bus. Every other guy from Africa's name is Emmanuel. Sure, I don't remember who you are, but I'm sure I talked to you. We weren't concerned about that. And so he said, okay, well, I'd like to meet up, maybe on Sunday after church. That's great. We decided to meet up on a street corner, and he pulls up in a taxi, and he looks out the window of the taxi and he says, "You're not girls." And we thought, well, no, clearly we're not girls. And he said, "That's okay, get in." That should have been a red flag, but it wasn't. We thought, okay, you know what? Let's see how this plays out. So we get in the back of this taxi cab, and he drives to an apartment, and we think we're going to sit down and we're going to talk to this guy about Jesus, and it's going to be great. And then we get inside, and it's an apartment that's been transformed into a recording studio. Okay, so we walk inside, and there's a bunch of people in there, and they sit us down, and they don't really introduce themselves or anything like that. They say, okay, well, this is the main verse of the song, and this is the parts that you're going to sing. And we thought, okay, well, this is not why I'm here. But we kind of played along. We didn't want to be rude, and so we learned our parts to this song, and it was a really cheesy love song. And we're just like, what is going on? Why are we here? And I still remember the song. I would do anything for love. And then we would sing, all for love, all for love. And that was the song. And so we're sitting in this recording studio singing with this guy, and they're talking to us in English because we're clearly Americans, and they don't know that we speak Greek. And they're talking about, what's going on, and they kept on having to redo things, and it wasn't sounding quite right. And they were talking about my companion, especially, who doesn't have any musical training. He's just some guy from California who happened to be, in this recording studio. And so they're like, oh, this guy doesn't know how to sing. He's ruining everything. But they're saying it in Greek because they don't think he can understand. And he's over here like, ah. But so we're sitting here singing, and we're here for half an hour trying to get this right. And it's just not working. And in my companion's defense, it wasn't a good song to start with. It wasn't very well written. But I had to call it quit after a little while because it just wasn't working. So I don't know if they ever produced that song or if they got somebody else to sing it, but there might be a song out there with two elders singing backup for a really cheesy love song. But yeah, that was a very unique experience. So the Greek people themselves are quite friendly, especially if you're not talking about religion. They're very... their culture is very centered around the Orthodox Church. You could say that their government's basically run by the church. It's not, but the church has so much influence over the government, it might as well be. So it's very difficult for people to get jobs there unless they're members of the Orthodox Church. You pretty much can't own property unless you're members of the church. It's kind of a very unique system they've got going on there. It's their culture. They're Greek Orthodox. They have a lot of similar holidays to us. They celebrate Christmas. And they celebrate, they call it Pascha, but it's basically Easter. One tradition they have for Easter is they will dye eggs red, and they'll hard boil them, and they'll go around and they will knock their eggs together at the points. And they will, it's kind of like a competition. So everybody has one red egg, and they'll knock it against somebody else's, and whose ever egg cracks, because only one will crack, whose ever egg cracks is out, and then they go to the next person, and the person with the last egg that isn't cracked wins. So that's just kind of a fun little thing that they do. They also have vasilopita. It's a Christmas bread. It's a sweet bread, and they hide, I believe it's a coin. They hide a coin inside of it, and the person who finds the coin wins a prize or gets luck for the year or something. I can't remember exactly, but they have a competition for that as well. Who can find the coin in the vasilopita? So that's fun. As far as travel tips for Greece, obviously you'll want to visit Athens, visit the main square right in front of the Parliament. There's a lot of fun things to see there. There's a little walkway that has a lot of shops. They have monastiraki there. It's a little monastery, just kind of there in the middle of all these shops, and it's a lot of fun. They're close by. There's the Temple of Zeus. It's just down the road from the Parthenon. So you got to see the Parthenon while you're there. There's just kind of like an 8-block radius where all these really fun things are located. The Parthenon is kind of the main thing in Greece. It's on top of the tallest mountain in Athens, and it's the temple of Athena. And it's kind of fallen apart a little bit, but it's still gorgeous. You got to go up there, and from there you can kind of see the panorama of Athens, and it's gorgeous. Thessaloniki is also gorgeous. Paul went there. Obviously, he wrote to the Thessalonians, and so they've got a couple of places there. Oh, Paul stood here and taught people, and so they've got a couple of those things. They've got up in Thessaloniki, Lefkos Pyrgos. It's a tall tower right on the edge of the water that used to be a prison, and it used to be red. Now it's white. They painted it white, but it used to be red. And what I'm told is that they had the prisoners inside of there, and when they'd kill a prisoner, they'd paint the outside of the prison red. And it's a really tall tower. You can see it from forever away. And they paint the whole thing red. And so people coming in by ship to try to attack, that was the first thing they'd see, this blood-stained tower, to try to discourage people from coming. But as long as you stay in the tourist areas, you're great. They love tourists. It's one of their main imports, let's say, as one of their main areas of income. And so if you're in the tourist area, they'll treat you like you're royalty. They want you to spend your money there. If you go outside the tourist areas, it can get a little dodgy. There's a place, Ammonia, where there's a lot of drugs. You don't want to go there. It's very close to some of the tourist areas, though, so you need to be careful. But it's for the most part, people are very friendly. But you do need to be careful, especially if you're American. They don't love Americans. As long as you're in the tourist areas, they're fine. They love you. But outside the tourist areas, you might get some looks. As long as you stay in the tourist areas, it's gorgeous, and you should go. Just be careful outside of those areas. That's all I'm trying to say. Είμαι πάρα πολύ ευγνώμων για την ευκαιρία που είχα να μείνω εκεί στην Ελλάδα. Είναι μια ωραία χώρα. Οι άνθρωποι εκεί είναι όμορφοι και ευγενικοί. Τους λατρεύω και επίσης λατρεύω το φαΐ εκεί. Είναι το καλύτερο στον κόσμο. Αλήθεια σου λέω. Και επίσης ελπίζω ότι τα προβλήματα που έχετε με την οικονομία θα περάσει και θα ξαναγίνει καλά για σας. Το αξίζετε. Σας αγαπάω.